Paul vs. Silva match is gaining headlines for its controversial scorecards. Were the judges fair? Was Silva robbed? This is Square Circle Film Breakdown. What does the film tell us? The first round starts off with both fighters tentatively finding their range. Jake Paul probes with the lead hand to draw out parries from Silva, who uses lateral movement to keep Jake at bay. Here we see Jake go for the first true shot of the fight, a stab jab to the body that misses. It's here we see old habits resurge, and throwing the punch, Paul is once again overextending. Film doesn't lie. The feeling out process continues as Jake flashes a level change into a lead hook. Silva doesn't bite, however, and gives Paul a quick jab for being out of position, while getting out of the way of the hook. Interesting to see this early on, Paul is doing a good job of fighting the lead foot battle. Paul goes back into the toolkit once again to flash a level change, but this time Silva bites and puts up that long guard we talked about in the film. Paul capitalizes on the opening with the lead hook, and then again, takes the lead foot and level changes to get Silva to reach, this time looping a right past Silva's guard. Paul's team have done their homework. Silva continues to dance around the ring, clearly still feeling his way into the fight. Jake is making a clear commitment to the stab jab to the body in this fight, but here it gets caught on the losing end of the lead foot battle. Silva slips the lead hand, and with Jake's backhand out of position, he eats an overhand for his troubles. Paul isn't bothered and immediately goes back to work. Jake Paul takes the opening round. In round 2, immediately Paul comes firing to Silva's chest. Silva responds with a set of probes that push Paul backwards, and for the first time in the fight, Silva is on the front foot. Notice how Silva cuts off the ring here. Feints low to the body to get Paul to level change in response and circle left, cutting off that route. Jake attempts to escape the corner with jabs on the move, but Silva slips and takes Paul's lead foot and uses his lead hand to control Paul's back shoulder and cut off his escape route to the left. Silva then sets up his offense, attempting a long right hand that pushes Paul onto the ropes, or immediately clinches. Paul does something smart here we didn't see him do in previous fights. In the clinch, he pushes off the ropes, and while the referee separates them, he immediately turns towards the center of the ring, resetting the fight out of a compromising position against the ropes. Silva doesn't stop his attack, however, trapping Paul in the corner and splitting his guard with the left hand, and then going to that forearm frame we saw in the film to make space for the backhand uppercut. In the corner, both men probe to try to bait their respective offense. Jake probes high to get Silva to respect his lead hand and probe back to match, then dips and feints low to get Silva to bring down his guard and bombs his signature overhand right. However, Silva's athleticism bails him out as he's able to roll the punch at the last second. Silva shows some flashy head movement and awkward footwork that looks to just be playing to the crowd, but watch closely. He steps right just as Paul attempts to go in that direction and cuts him off once again, forcing him in the opposite direction. To keep Paul from pivoting out, he feints a lead hook to get Paul to react defensively and push himself into the corner. Very savvy ring generalship from the veteran. Silva looks to have found his rhythm in this round. To open up round 3, both fighters are heavy on the feints and probes. Notice though both fighters' feet. At this point in the fight, Jake is consistently losing the lead foot battle. Body-head combinations seem to be a staple of Paul's game plan as he sets up a strong left hook to stab and cross downstairs. Jake seems intent on shutting down engagements on the ropes, which have already shown to be a weak spot for him in this fight, by immediately clinching and resetting to center ring, which begins to frustrate his opponent. Silva picks up his pace and continues to pressure Paul, who is now moving straight backwards, desperately trying to escape the fire. Silva takes advantage of Paul's high guard and loops shots around the guard. Paul attempts to clinch again, but Silva slips out and catches Paul with a left hand. Paul takes a deep breath before launching the right hand. Silva misjudges the trajectory of the punch and it slips through his elbow guard, but Silva insofar is unfazed by Jake's power. Later on, Jake begins to find his confidence, probing with the lead hand before snapping Silva's head back with a rear hand hook that Silva thinks is coming low. Jake momentarily takes lead foot positioning and goes on the attack, slipping the jab and throwing a high-low combination that scores him a cupping lead hook. He continues to press his advantage, taking lead foot positioning once more, putting Silva directly in line for a right cross, a close round that could have gone to either fighter. In round 4, Jake once again commits to landing combinations that begin with a body attack. However, notice this time he's ignoring lead foot positioning, allowing Anderson to block and evade most of the shots. Silva's nose appears to have been broken somewhere in the last round, and it's clearly affecting him as he's much less willing to push the pace against Paul. Jake Paul is beginning to land his jab with much more consistency, constantly throwing it just after a level change or while in a crouch. Silva's become very wary of Paul's body work and is thus giving Jake these opportunities. Jake jabs low, but this time instead throws a right hand over the top. Notice how Anderson dips low with his backhand low to parry a potential body shot but leaves his hand up for insurance. He completely expects body here, but is using good defensive awareness to leave his right hand up. Unfortunately for Silva, due to the issues with his elbow guard that we mentioned during the film, Paul manages to loop the shot around anyway. Paul throws low again, and once more Silva parries low and leaves his head exposed, with Jake Paul barely grazing the back of his head with a lead hook. Silva responds by catching Jake mid-combination with a left hook while switching stances and then a sneaky head control into an uppercut. Jake returns to using his legs to keep Silva at bay, occasionally popping a jab or a straight right to the body. Silva finishes the round strong by pushing Jake into the ropes and abusing Jake's high guard with shots around into the body and through the middle, but too late to win him the round. It's in between rounds 4 and 5 we hear Jake Paul's coach outline their game plan.
Keep working that jab. Don't abandon that right hand to the body, left hook. All right, jab low, jab high, right hand come around the corner. All right, hit him in the ear. Come around that side, but make sure you keep turning to the left. Keep your foot on the outside.
Clearly, Jake's team saw the same weaknesses in Anderson that we saw in our film study, or maybe Coach Danny Smith watches the channel. Jake takes his team's direction to heart and opens with a jab feint into a right cross to the body. He continues a strong start by probing a jab at Anderson's guard to get him to shell up before looping a right hand around it and finishing with 2 clubbing hooks to Silva's exposed body. Paul then feints a jab into a lead hook over the top that catches Silva clean, then jabs low again to land an overhand. Here Silva significantly ups his pace, switching stances to apply a much higher amount of pressure on Paul than before. Now Silva is catching Paul with hooks as he's trying to escape off the ropes and breaking his clinches, attacking Paul with sharp combinations where he expects to be in a safe space. Jake Paul misses a wide left hook and spins off balance, and Anderson is there to punish him with a straight left and continue to manhandle Paul on the inside. The clinch that became a way to escape Silva's inside attack has now become a detriment, with Silva attacking the body and sneaking uppercuts through the middle constantly. Silva is also beginning to read Jake's offense, which has become somewhat predictable. Notice how now, when he parries the body shot, he's dipping low and rolling the right hand off the shoulder. Silva continues to find holes on Jake's defense, tapping and probing at Jake to occupy his guard before looping power shots around and through it and finishing the dominant round with another uppercut. I think the pace is beginning to affect Jake Paul. Paul once again heads off round 6 strong. He establishes a lead hand battle at the beginning of the round and then feints off a final probe to get Silva's hand extended. He comes around with a lead hook and finishes with a strong right hand to Silva's stomach. Notice how deeply Paul is breathing after the exchange and how low his hands are now compared to earlier in the fight. Once again, Paul tries to go head, body, head, but Silva weaves the power shot. However, Jake smartly capitalizes this combination with a popping jab that catches Silva unaware. It looks like Silva expended a good amount of energy in round 5 and has decided to take this round off. Jake capitalizes on the fight, returning to his preferred pace by throwing a combination to the body followed by a straight right to the head, each shot taking advantage of the holes in Silva's guard. At the end of the round, Silva backs Paul onto the ropes and begins to empty the clip, although this time Jake is willing to throw with him and lands decent shots. Anderson wins the exchange overall, but too little too late to save the round. The penultimate round starts out cagey, with neither fighter willing to commit anything serious. Jake Paul continues to work off the jab on the move while Anderson pursues, no longer cutting off the ring with the efficiency he had during the beginning of the fight. Off the jab, Jake sits down and launches a painful combination to Silva's body. Keep in mind here he doesn't follow up to the head and then gets back on his bike. Jake once again ambushes Silva off the jab, ripping body shots around his guard, but this time following up with a right hand that sends Silva backwards. This strategy finds continuing success against the inactive Silva, as Paul this time feints into a single strong cross to Silva's body. Notice how Silva here dips low, already prepared to evade potential follow-up shots up top. Paul is doing a great job of mixing up the offense to keep Silva guessing now. Jake this time flashes a quick level change. At this point, Jake has started nearly all his offense this round with a probe into bodywork, so off the level change, Silva reaches to accept the probe that doesn't come and instead takes a clean right cross. Silva attempts to finish strong on the ropes again, but Paul clinches and resets the fight at center ring. Paul instead makes the biggest impression at the end of the round, landing a sweeping right hand with only seconds left. At this point, Silva needs a stoppage to win. Immediately, it's obvious Silva's going to go for it. To start the round, his movement and energy is almost night and day compared to the last 2 rounds. The 2 fighters engage in 50-50, with Silva taking advantage of Paul's low hands and another sneaky head control to land an uppercut that makes Paul shell up. But Paul isn't willing to let up. Next time Silva tries for the uppercut, Jake counters with a left hook. The fight is becoming very physical, with both fighters working on the inside. Paul separates and returns to the back foot with Silva hot in pursuit. They then engage in another 50-50. Paul feints high to draw up the guard and lands 2 ripping body shots, followed by a jab. The 2 trade power shots, but pay attention to their stances. Jake remains bladed in his stance, allowing him to sit down and draw power from his legs upward into the punch. Silva, however, is standing square. meaning not only is he not able to draw nearly as much strength from his legs into the shot, he's also already off balance. At the same time, Jake catches him while he's turning into his own punch, further increasing the power of Jake's shot, all creating the perfect storm for the biggest knockdown of Jake's career. Silva, an experienced veteran, takes extra time on the ground to regain his legs before resuming the fight. Paul comes out applying pressure, landing a left hook that Silva just manages to roll to take the full sting off the punch. Paul lands another right hand around the guard off a level change feint. Silva attempts to pressure Paul, but fatigue and the after effects of the knockdown allow Paul to slip off the ropes. Paul once again lands a clubbing right hand around Silva's guard, followed by a jab that catches Silva just as he begins the uppercut. On the rope, Silva posts with the lead hand to occupy Paul's backhand and then counters over the jab with a strong left cross. Now Silva's catching Paul overreaching as he throws his combinations, but Jake answers with a raw right cross that twists Silva's head. Silva comes back with a straight left that splits Paul's guard, and both fighters begin to work in the clinch, with Anderson winning the exchanges. Our final scorecard was 6 rounds to 2 in favor of Jake Paul. However, I had the third round a swing round, meaning I had it going to either fighter. Funnily enough, the judges had my exact score even down to the swing round, so in my opinion the scorecards are pretty fair, no robbery here. Jake is much improved as a fighter and deserves a lot of respect for the work he's put in. If you enjoyed the content, please jab that subscribe button, head control the like button, maybe even clinch share. I got a lot of content I want to share with you guys in the coming weeks, and I'm glad you chose to be with me.